Shalom and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today we are in Jerusalem, but we are going to take a tour. That is quite different. We are going to explore underground Jerusalem. We are going to walk through tunnels with more than 2,000 years of history and end up in the underground areas of the Temple of Jerusalem. You are going to see the city like you never imagined. So if you're ready, let's get started. Today's tour starts here in the lowest part of the city of David. And before we go into the tunnels and underground, I want to show you where we are. This place here, which at first glance seems so simple, was the scene of one of the most important passages in the Bible. Do you see here that there are steps going down?
What is this?
This is the beginning of a large pool called the Pool of Siloam, or the Siloam Pool. Maybe now with the name, you already know which passage I'm talking about. This is where Jesus healed the man who was blind from birth, as it is written in this passage. And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, saying, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. I must do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud on the blind man's eyes. And he said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. He went, washed, and came back seeing. And this place where Jesus performed this great miracle was forgotten and disappeared. And it was only rediscovered in the year 2004. Yes, what you're seeing was buried until 2004. This pool was originally built 2,700 years ago by King Hezekiah to defend the city of Jerusalem from the Assyrian attack. But what we see here is just a small part of it. We're entering the deepest part now. So this is the part that used to be underwater. And you can see here where this pile of dirt and clay is, that's where the pool continues. Unfortunately, everything over there is private property and the owners of the place don't allow archaeological excavations. But we know that the Pool of Siloam continues this way and that there are many wonders that can still be found. In fact, if we look here, we find many pieces of pottery from ancient times. Where did the water that entered the Pool of Siloam go? It no longer enters the pool, but it keeps flowing right here beside us. You can see this water source is the same one that has been flowing here since biblical times. This is the spring called the Gihon Spring, but it is directed somewhere else. Isn't it amazing that the plumbing from 2,700 years ago is still working? And I think it's really beautiful that we are going to start our walk today here at the Pool of Siloam. First, because this is where Jesus performed one of his miracles, but also because this was the starting point for many pilgrims who came to visit Jerusalem. When people came from distant lands to visit Jerusalem, to visit the Temple of Jerusalem, which is also where we're going, the first thing they wanted when they arrived in Jerusalem was water. So they started here to get water, and from here they would go to Jerusalem. So there's no water here anymore, but this is where we're going to start our walk through the underground passages of Jerusalem. So let's go. The pilgrims who arrived in Jerusalem started at the Pool of Siloam, because they were looking for water and they walked along this street. We're walking on an original street that's 2,000 years old. But besides water, they also needed to buy some things, and that's why we're seeing a shop here. Let's go inside and see what was sold. As you can see, there was food, spices, ceramics, clothes, and also animals. Why did people need animals? Because they could buy the animals to take to the temple, so the animals could be sacrificed. And we can also see there are fish. Of course, there's no sea in Jerusalem, but they brought imported fish. It was considered something fancy at the time. I mean, only the best of the best was sold here, and people would walk along this street. The city of Jerusalem has different levels. This level is from 2,000 years ago, and if we came here in the time of Jesus, this whole area would be open air. But I told you that we're going to walk through the underground. Even back then, there were already underground areas in Jerusalem. In fact, here we can see a little crack of it. If we look here, we can see that there's a part further down. This here is the plumbing of Jerusalem, and there were tunnels with different functions. What we're going to do now is not walk along this street where people walked 2,000 years ago, but rather walk on a lower level. Now let's walk together through the underground. As you can see in this drawing, on top there's the busy street, and underneath are the water tunnels. We've finally arrived at the underground part now. You can notice that it's really tight here, both on the sides and the height, because this place wasn't made for walking. It used to be the water drainage system of Jerusalem. And that's also why, since no one was supposed to pass through here, the stones, you can see they're very simple. They're not worked or carved like the stones that were exposed, because in the end, the people who built this tunnel 2,000 years ago never imagined that we would turn it into an archaeological park and a really interesting tour in the future. But let's keep exploring this place. And you can see here the state of preservation of this tunnel. Is everything you're seeing here original? The walls, the floor, and even the ceiling? This part is also nice because it's not so low. I can walk here comfortably, but without a doubt, this is not a tour for claustrophobic people. We are going to walk a total of 700 meters underground from the pool of Siloam in the lowest part of the city until we reach the Temple Mount, where we will see the remains of the Jerusalem temple. Along the way, we see several doors that are closed. What are they? They are other tunnels. We are walking through one tunnel, but actually this is a gigantic underground labyrinth beneath Jerusalem. But most of this labyrinth hasn't been excavated yet. For example, right here on the side where this sign is written, "Do not enter." They are just starting to excavate now, and the black buckets are used to remove the soil and archaeological remains from here. And speaking of archaeological remains, thousands of artifacts have been found here, among them this small inscribed seal, Dekaleia, which means pure for God. This seal was placed by the Levites on pure objects destined for the Temple of Jerusalem. For example, oil that would be used in the menorah, in the candelabrum. And this representation of the menorah was also found here, made on the rock. It's very, very simple, but think about it. The person who drew this probably saw the menorah, the original candelabrum in the temple, with their own eyes. Here the path splits in two. If you go up these stairs, you reach Reunion Givate, a very interesting archaeological park. And from all the noise you're hearing, it's in the middle of active archaeological excavations. And if we keep going this way, where we're headed now, we'll reach the underground of the Temple of Jerusalem. Guys, as you can see, this part here is really narrow. Look, barely.
I can get through here.
We are now in an underground maze. As you can see, there are many passages, many paths. And it was used in the year 66 by the Jewish rebels who declared war against the Roman Empire, which was then the largest and best army in the world. And the Jews of Jerusalem and Israel, who had no military training, would use what they had. And one of the things they had was a labyrinth that the Romans didn't know how to walk through.
But the Jews did.
So this was a place where Jewish rebels fought against the Roman Empire, but unfortunately the Romans won the Jewish rebellion and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. And now we're coming out from the depths, but we're still underground. I want to show you this wall here. You can see that it's different from the other walls we've seen so far. Until now, everything was really thick and simple stones, and suddenly we see here that there are stones. Carved. More than that, these stones have frames, they have texture. What is this? These are the foundations of the Temple of Jerusalem. Literally, this is part of the second Temple of Jerusalem, built by King Herodes the Great, a little over 2,000 years ago, and the same temple that Jesus knew. Now we are underground. Originally, no one was supposed to come through here. So what is the point of making the building's foundation carved? Honestly, this makes no sense. It wasn't meant to be seen by anyone. But the Temple of Jerusalem is so important and its work is so wonderful that even what couldn't be seen was also worked on, but of course in a simpler way. We can see here that these stones are similar to the ones we'll see up above, but up there they are even more worked and carved. The archaeological excavations that have been done here in recent years have revealed gigantic treasures to us. The greatest of them, without a doubt, is seeing the underground part of the Temple of Jerusalem. What people haven't seen for 2,000 years, we can see here with our own eyes. And we also found small objects here, including coins. On one of these coins, it says the Holy City of Jerusalem, and another is a half-shekel coin. Both were made at the time when the temple still existed. Now, what is a half-shekel? Also called a half-cycle, it is the amount that, according to the Bible, every adult man of the people of Israel should give once a year to the Temple of Jerusalem. And that's why this coin was produced, whose value was exactly half a shekel. And people would exchange the money they had for this specific coin called half a shekel. And when they entered the temple, they used it to pay. And these coins were counted, and they were used as a kind of census. So it was possible to know how many people entered the temple each day. The Temple of Jerusalem had 4 outer walls. One of them we know today as the Wailing Wall, and this here actually is the underground part of the Wailing Wall. You can also see this because of the little notes. We see here the papers with the names and prayers that people leave here. So here it's like a private area of the Wailing Wall just for us. Special, isn't it? And what's on the other side of this wall is Mount Moriah, the place where Abraham went to sacrifice his son Isaac, and where he made the covenant that we follow to this day. And that's why on Mount Moriah, the Temple of Jerusalem was built, whose remains we can see here. But now we're going to leave the underground together and see the rest of what's left of the Temple of Jerusalem, which isn't down here.
Let's go.
And now this really is the end of our journey. And now we're heading back out into the daylight. And right behind us, we see the remains of the Jerusalem Temple, the Western Wall, which we also know as the Wailing Wall. This isn't the well-known part, which is just ahead, but this here is just as important as the part over there. Also, the floor we're walking on now is original from 2,000 years ago, and it used to be a very important commercial street. And here you can see the shops for those who didn't buy everything they wanted at the stores near the pool of Siloam. So close your eyes and imagine the Temple of Jerusalem. Imagine the pilgrims arriving here. After they got water from the pool of Siloam, they walked through the streets, not through the tunnels we made, but through the street we saw at the beginning. After buying food, after buying animals to sacrifice, after exchanging their money, they would go up this street and see here one of the most beautiful buildings the world has ever seen, the temple. But now if we open our eyes, what we see is a completely different picture. A picture of destruction, because in the year 70, the Romans destroyed the temple and not one stone was left upon another. What we see here on the side are literally the remains of the temple. So when the Romans destroyed it, they threw the stones down from up there to down here. So these stones that I'm touching now, they are part of the wall and also of the temple itself. See how much history is gathered here in Jerusalem in one place. So small physically. So I want to invite all of you to come and visit Jerusalem one day because it truly is a unique experience. So I'll say goodbye to you here at this place, and I want to remind you to subscribe to the channel because there are new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. A big kiss and I'll see you next time.